My name is Amber Mitchell, and at 34, I finally achieved my lifelong dream of opening my own restaurant. After years of culinary school, working under demanding chefs who broke me down daily, and saving every penny, opening night should have been perfect. Instead, I stood frozen, staring at the empty table I had specially reserved for my family. The elaborate place settings, the champagne on ice, the handwritten menus, all waiting for guests who never arrived. Before I tell you how I turned the worst night of my career into my greatest blessing, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and subscribe for more stories about turning betrayal into triumph. Growing up in a small Nebraska town wasn't easy for a girl with big culinary dreams. Our community of barely 5,000 people valued tradition and practicality over creativity and risk-taking. My father, Richard, worked the same accounting job for 30 years and expected his children to follow similarly reliable paths. My mother, Catherine, managed our household with quiet efficiency, but always deferred to my father on important decisions. My older brother Ryan seemed perfectly content following our father's well-worn footsteps into a sensible career. But I was different. At just 8 years old, I fell in love with cooking. My grandmother Elaine would let me help in her kitchen during weekend visits, teaching me to make flaky pie crusts and perfect roast chicken. Amber, she'd say, her hands guiding mine through bread dough, cooking is how we show love without saying a word. Those hours in her kitchen planted a seed that would grow into an unstoppable passion. My father saw cooking as a basic life skill, not a career path. Cooking is what you do to eat, not what you do for a living, he'd say whenever I mentioned my growing interest in culinary arts. While my mother occasionally praised my kitchen experiments, she never contradicted my father's dismissal of my passion. Restaurants fail every day, Amber, became my father's mantra whenever I mentioned my dream. Do you know how many talented chefs end up broke? His practical concerns weren't entirely unfounded, but his delivery left no room for dreams. Ryan, 3 years older and already following our father's path into business, would roll his eyes at my cooking phase. "When are you going to grow up and get serious?" he'd ask, as though my passion was merely childish indulgence. The first real heartbreak came during my sophomore year of high school. I entered the county cooking competition with an original recipe that combined my grandmother's traditional techniques with flavors I'd been studying in international cookbooks from our local library. After months of practicing, testing, and perfecting my dish, I won first place. The local newspaper even wanted to interview me. No one from my family attended. My father had a more important business meeting. My mother stayed home because someone needed to make dinner. Ryan had a basketball game. I stood alone accepting my certificate while other contestants celebrated with their families. That night, I decided cooking would be my lifeline, my escape. If my family couldn't support my dreams, I would find people who would. I began working part-time at a local diner, learning everything I could about commercial kitchens. I saved every penny while researching culinary schools far from Nebraska. My senior year brought the inevitable confrontation. College applications were due, and while my parents assumed I would attend the local community college like Ryan had, I had secretly applied to the Culinary Institute in New York. "This is ridiculous," my father exploded when I finally revealed my acceptance letter. "We're not paying for you to move across the country to learn something you could learn in our own kitchen." "Richard," my mother ventured timidly, "maybe we should." "No, Catherine. She needs to be practical. This chef fantasy ends now." That night, I cried until I had no tears left. Then I calculated my savings, researched scholarships, and formulated a plan. 2 weeks later, with a small suitcase and every dollar I had saved, I left a note on the kitchen table and boarded a bus to New York. My father's last words to me had been, "If you walk out that door, don't expect our help when this fails." I walked out anyway. New York City hit me like a physical force. After growing up where I could recognize every face on Main Street, the anonymity of 8 million strangers was both terrifying and exhilarating. My first apartment was a 5th-floor walk-up in Queens that I shared with 3 other culinary students. My bedroom was barely larger than a closet, but it was mine, the first space that truly belonged to me. Culinary school was nothing like cooking in Grandma Elaine's kitchen. The instructors didn't care about my passion. They cared about precision, speed, and technique. Chef Wilson made me dice the same onion 6 times because my cuts weren't uniform enough. Chef Moretti reduced a classmate to tears for over-reducing a sauce by mere tablespoons. Each day was a battle to prove I belonged there. "Your knife skills are Nebraska farmhouse, not New York fine dining," Chef Wilson would say, demonstrating the correct technique for the 3rd time while my fingers cramped from gripping the knife too tightly. These weren't gentle teachers sharing wisdom. They were drill sergeants breaking us down to build us into professional chefs. Between classes, I worked 2 jobs to afford tuition and rent. Mornings before class, I served coffee at a small cafe. Evenings and weekends, I washed dishes at a mid-range restaurant, occasionally convincing the line cooks to teach me their techniques when the head chef wasn't around. Sleep became a luxury I rarely enjoyed. My roommate Jessica became my first real ally in the city. Unlike my family, she understood the drive to follow a passion against all odds. A dance student from Florida, she recognized the exhaustion in my eyes when I returned home at 1 a.m. only to wake at 5 a.m. for my cafe shift. "Your family's still giving you the silent treatment?" she asked one night, finding me staring at my phone with no new messages. "They're not silent," I replied. "My mom calls every Sunday to remind me I could come home when this cooking thing doesn't work out. My dad gets on the line just to ask if I'm done playing chef yet." Jessica squeezed my shoulder. "Their loss. They'll eat their words someday when they're bragging about their famous chef daughter." Halfway through my 2nd semester, I hit a breaking point. A particularly brutal week of exams, combined with double shifts and a call home where my father mentioned he was helping Ryan with a down payment on a house because he made sensible choices, left me questioning everything. I sat on the fire escape outside our apartment, seriously considering packing my bags. That's when Chef Gabriel, the most renowned instructor at the Institute, changed my trajectory. Known for rarely offering praise, he stopped me after a practical exam on French techniques. "Mitchell," he said, using my last name as all the chefs did. "You're bouillabaisse." The saffron and fennel balance was, he paused, and I braced for criticism. It was inspired. "You have something most technical chefs don't, intuition for flavor. Don't waste it." Those few words sustained me through the next 2 years. When I graduated with honors, I stood alone again. My family had declined my invitation to the ceremony, but this time, I wasn't devastated. I had Jessica, fellow students, and even a few instructors who believed in me. My first professional kitchen position was at Lumiere, a French-inspired restaurant in Manhattan. As calm as the lowest-ranking cook, I worked 16-hour days for minimal pay. The hierarchy was strict. The head chef shouted orders, the sous chef enforced them, and line cooks like me executed without question. I chopped vegetables until my hands blistered, then healed, then calloused. I learned to work through burns, cuts, and exhaustion. Over the next decade, I methodically climbed the culinary ladder. From Lumiere, I moved to a farm-to-table concept restaurant as a line cook. 3 years later, I became sous chef at an award-winning bistro. Eventually, I secured a position as head chef at Terroir, a well-respected establishment focusing on regional American cuisine. Along the way, I met Samantha, the owner of Terroir, who became both mentor and friend. Unlike other restaurant owners focused solely on profit, Samantha understood the artistry of food while respecting the business realities. "A restaurant is more than food," she told me over late-night wine after closing. "It's a story you tell through every detail, the menu, the lighting, the service." When you open your own place someday, remember you're creating an experience, not just meals. For 10 years, I lived frugally, investing every spare dollar into my restaurant fund. My apartments remained small, my car secondhand, my vacations non-existent. Each sacrifice brought me closer to the dream. Then I met Derek, a beverage director known for innovative cocktail programs. Over staff meals, we discovered shared visions for what a restaurant could be. When he suggested we become business partners, combining my culinary expertise with his front-of-house knowledge, the final piece fell into place. During all those years in New York, my relationship with my family remained strained. Occasional calls home revealed they still viewed my career as a phase. My father never asked about my accomplishments. My mother would sometimes mention she saw a cooking show that reminded me of you, but never expressed genuine interest in my work. Ryan, now married with children, seemed to have fully embraced the narrative that I had foolishly abandoned family for a pipe dream. Despite this, when Derek and I began scouting locations, I felt pulled toward the Mountain West. Denver, I suggested. It's a growing food scene, but not oversaturated. And I hesitated. It's closer to Nebraska. Part of me still hoped that proximity might bridge the family gap I'd never been able to close. Denver welcomed us with unexpected warmth. The city's food scene was evolving beyond steakhouses and brewpubs, with diners hungry for innovative concepts. After weeks of scouting, we found it, a former hardware store in a gentrifying neighborhood, with exposed brick walls, high ceilings, and large windows. The moment I walked through the door, I could envision every detail of my restaurant. Securing financing proved more difficult than finding the location. Despite my impressive culinary resume and Derek's business plan, we faced rejection after rejection. Restaurants are high-risk investments, the fifth loan officer told us, echoing my father's warnings from years earlier. Especially chef-owned concepts without corporate backing. Finally, Colorado First Bank took a chance on us, approving a loan that, combined with our savings, would allow us to move forward if everything went according to budget. Nothing went according to budget. The first disaster struck during initial renovations. We found asbestos in the ceiling, our contractor Marcus explained, pointing to exposed insulation. We can't proceed until it's professionally removed. The abatement cost devoured our contingency fund before we'd even installed a single burner. Next came the plumbing nightmares. The century-old pipes beneath the building needed complete replacement. Then permit delays pushed our timeline back by months. Each setback drained more money from our dwindling accounts. We might need to scale back some elements, Derek suggested after a particularly devastating meeting with our accountant. Maybe simplify the kitchen equipment package. No, I insisted. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. I'll put in more of my savings. That night, I transferred the last of my emergency fund into our business account. There was no safety net left. Homestead had to succeed. I chose the name Homestead as a nod to my Midwestern roots. Despite everything, I wanted to honor the place that shaped me and the grandmother who nurtured my first culinary sparks. The concept would be elevated farm-to-table cuisine featuring modernized versions of heartland classics, using Colorado's abundant local produce and proteins. Hiring our team felt like assembling family. Marcus, initially our contractor, impressed me so much with his attention to detail and work ethic that I offered him the sous chef position once construction finished. Thomas, a charismatic hospitality professional with an encyclopedic wine knowledge, became our host and floor manager. Sophia, a recent culinary school graduate with ambition that reminded me of myself, joined as our lead line cook. Creating the menu became my obsession. I wanted dishes that honored traditional Midwestern cooking while elevating it beyond stereotypes. Grandma Elaine's pot roast transformed into 48-hour short ribs with parsnip puree and pickled mustard seeds. Her apple pie inspired a deconstructed tart with cider caramel and cinnamon ice cream. Each recipe underwent dozens of tests and refinements. As opening day approached, I sent carefully worded texts to my family, trying to sound casual while extending the invitation I desperately hoped they would accept. Restaurant opening April 15th in Denver. Reserve the best table for family. Would mean a lot if you could come. The responses trickled in over days. My mother, we'll have to see how your father's schedule looks. Ryan, might be tough with the kids' activities. My father didn't respond at all. I tried again a week later with formal invitations, sent by mail with handwritten notes explaining how important their presence would be. This time, my father texted back, "We'll try." Those two words gave me more hope than they should have. Meanwhile, local press began showing interest in our concept. A food writer from Denver monthly visited during our Friends and Family test dinner, resulting in a glowing preview piece. Chef Mitchell brings sophisticated nostalgia to Denver's dining scene, the headline read. I mailed a copy to my parents with no response. The night before opening, after our final staff meeting and test service, I remained alone in the completed space. Every detail reflected years of planning and dreaming, from the custom wooden tables built by a local craftsman to the vintage-inspired lighting that cast a warm glow over the dining room. The kitchen gleamed with top-of-the-line equipment I'd once only fantasized about using. I set a single-place setting at the bar and poured myself a glass of champagne. "We did it," I whispered to the empty restaurant, raising my glass in a silent toast to my younger self who had boarded that bus to New York with nothing but determination. The next morning, I arranged a special touch for the family table, a small framed photo of Grandma Elaine in her kitchen, placed discreetly near the centerpiece. The six-top booth had the best view in the house, with a perfect sightline to both the open kitchen and the picturesque front windows. I personally polished each wine glass and placed the special tasting menu I had created just for them. "They'll come," I told myself, straightening the frame for the 5th time. "They have to come." Opening day dawned clear and bright, the kind of perfect spring morning that felt like a good omen. I arrived at 5 a.m., hours before anyone else, to begin preparations. Each ingredient delivery was inspected personally: the locally raised beef, the organic produce from Colorado farms, the artisanal cheeses from a small dairy outside Boulder. Everything had to be perfect. By 10 a.m., the rest of the staff arrived. Marcus immediately took control of kitchen prep, directing the line cooks with the precision I'd hired him for. Thomas arranged the reservation book while training 2 new servers on our service standards. The energy was electric. Nervous, yes, but thrilled. Team meeting in 5, I called at 3 p.m., gathering everyone in the dining room before doors opened at 5. 20 faces looked back at me, from seasoned veterans to first-job bussers, all depending on Homestead's success for their livelihoods. "Tonight isn't just another restaurant opening," I began. "It's the culmination of all our hard work, all our dreams. There will be mistakes, that's inevitable. But we'll handle them together. Remember, we're not just serving food, we're creating experiences people will remember. So breathe, trust your training, and let's make this a night Denver won't forget." A spontaneous round of applause broke out, and for a moment, I felt the weight of my family's absence lift. These people believed in me, in us, in what we were building. The first reservations would arrive at 5:30, giving us the traditional cushion to complete final preparations. As I headed back to the kitchen, I glanced at my phone. No messages from my family. I had expected them to leave Nebraska by mid-morning to make the 5-hour drive. They should have been on the road already. They're probably just not updating me, I reasoned, pushing down the familiar ache. They'll surprise me by just showing up. At 5 p.m., Thomas unlocked the front doors. Our first customers, an older couple celebrating an anniversary, arrived precisely at 5:30. The wife beamed as Thomas escorted them to their table. "We've been looking forward to this all week," she told me when I greeted them. "Your story in Denver Monthly was so inspiring." By 6 p.m., the dining room hummed with activity. The bar seats filled quickly, and the first entrees left the kitchen to appreciative murmurs. Yet with each new arrival, my eyes darted to the door, searching for familiar faces that never appeared. 6:30 p.m. The family table remained empty. I checked my phone between expediting orders. No messages. 7 p.m. The restaurant reached full capacity, except for that one reserved table. Servers began asking if we could seat other parties there. "Not yet," I insisted. "They're just running late." 7:30 p.m. I called my mother's cell phone from the office, reaching her voicemail. Then my father's. Then Ryan's. No answers. 8 p.m. Marcus noticed my increasingly frantic glances at the door. "Everything okay, chef?" he asked, concern evident beneath his professional demeanor. "Fine," I lied, focusing intently on plating a short rib. "Just making sure service is running smoothly." 8:30 p.m. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Ryan's name appeared on the screen, sending my heart racing. I stepped into the walk-in refrigerator for privacy and opened his message. "Dad says restaurants are risky investments. Mom doesn't feel well. Maybe next time." The cold air of the walk-in couldn't match the chill that settled over me. "Maybe next time." As though this were a casual dinner party, not the most important night of my professional life. As though their absence wouldn't leave a conspicuous empty table in my fully booked restaurant. As though 15 years of working toward this moment deserved nothing more than a last-minute text. I don't know how long I stood there, surrounded by carefully labeled ingredients, before Marcus found me. "Chef? The Henderson table is asking about their lamb." He stopped, seeing my face. "What happened?" I showed him the text, unable to form words. Those self-centered, he caught himself. "I'm sorry, Amber. That's beyond messed up. Table 6 needs their lamb," I said mechanically, straightening my chef's coat. "And tell Thomas, he can seat the waiting foretop at the family table." "Are you sure you're—" "I'm fine." I wasn't, but the restaurant floor wasn't the place to fall apart. Years of kitchen discipline took over as I compartmentalized the pain, tucking it away to examine later. Let's not keep our actual customers waiting. I returned to the line, channeling my hurt into laser focus on each plate. Every garnish placed with tweezers, every sauce applied with mathematical precision. The kitchen became my refuge as it had been since childhood, the one place where I knew exactly who I was and what I was capable of. But inside, something had cracked open. The last thread of hope that my family might eventually understand me, might eventually celebrate my passion, had finally snapped. The dinner service continued at full tilt, my personal heartbreak hidden beneath the professional veneer I'd spent years perfecting. Food left the kitchen. Plates returned empty. The mechanical rhythm of a successful service continued despite the hollow feeling in my chest. At 9:15 p.m., Thomas approached the pass with an unusual expression, part excitement, part anxiety. "William Chin just walked in," he whispered. My hands faltered mid-garnish. William Chin was Denver's most influential food critic, known for brutal honesty and the power to make or break new restaurants with a single review. Most critics waited at least a month before reviewing new establishments. For him to appear on opening night was unprecedented and terrifying. "He doesn't have a reservation," Thomas continued. "Says he was driving by, saw the activity, and decided to try his luck." "Seat him at the family table," I said, the words escaping before I could reconsider. There was something poetically appropriate about the critic taking the seats my family had abandoned. As Thomas led William to the table, I gathered my kitchen team. "William Chin is here. This changes nothing. We cook exactly as we have been all night, with precision, passion, and purpose. This is what we've prepared for." The kitchen's energy shifted subtly, backs straightened, movements became even more deliberate. Everyone understood the stakes. I personally oversaw every dish destined for William's table. His first course, my grandmother's traditional corn chowder, reinvented with roasted poblanos and crispy pancetta, left the kitchen looking like a magazine photograph. For his main course, he ordered our signature short ribs, the dish that most directly connected to my Midwestern roots. Through the kitchen window, I watched him take the first bite, his expression unreadable behind his signature round glasses. He wrote nothing, which veterans of the industry knew could be either very good or very bad. When he requested to meet the chef after his meal, my stomach clenched. This wasn't unusual. Critics often spoke with chefs, but it felt momentous, like a final exam after years of study. I removed my chef's coat, smoothed my hair, and entered the dining room. William stood as I approached, extending his hand with a warm smile that instantly eased my tension. "Chef Mitchell, that was exceptional," he said, gesturing for me to join him. Particularly the short ribs, I detected something unexpected in the braise. "Coffee and star anise," I admitted. My grandmother used to add a splash of her morning coffee to her pot roast. I elevated the concept. "Brilliantly done. The connection to your roots shows through without being slavishly traditional." He glanced at the small framed photo I'd forgotten to remove. "Family member?" "My grandmother. She's the reason I became a chef." "Is she here tonight?" I'd love to compliment her influence. The question punctured my professional composure. I looked at the empty seats surrounding us, seats that should have held my family, and something broke. Perhaps it was the stress of opening night, perhaps the culmination of years of rejection, but suddenly I couldn't maintain the pretense. "No one from my family came," I said, my voice catching. "I reserved this table for them." They've never supported my culinary dreams, and I thought. I hoped that seeing the restaurant might finally change that. But they couldn't even bother to show up. I immediately regretted the unprofessional confession, but William's expression showed no judgment, only understanding. You know, he said gently, in 15 years of reviewing restaurants, I've learned something interesting about chefs. The great ones are often cooking for someone who isn't there, seeking approval they may never receive. He tapped the table thoughtfully. My father wanted me to become a doctor. He didn't speak to me for 3 years when I became a food writer instead. What happened? I asked. He read something I wrote about a Chinese restaurant that prepared dishes his mother used to make. It was the first time he understood that my writing wasn't just about food, it was about preserving culture and memories, just like his mother did through cooking. William smiled. Sometimes we create our own families, Chef Mitchell. Sometimes the people who truly understand us aren't the ones who share our DNA. As if on cue, Marcus appeared at my side, ostensibly to check if we needed anything, but actually checking on me. The concern in his eyes was evident. Everything's wonderful, William assured him. I was just telling Chef Mitchell how impressed I am with the concept. She's been planning this place for years, Marcus said with unmistakable pride. You should have seen her testing that short rib recipe at 2 a.m. after regular prep was done. I realized then that Marcus had picked up extra prep shifts without complaint when I was recipe testing, had stayed late helping me perfect plating designs, had believed in my vision without question. He'd shown more faith in me than my blood relatives ever had. Thomas joined us next, bringing William a complimentary digestive. From our beverage director, Derek. He's sorry he couldn't be here tonight. His wife just had their baby yesterday, but he insisted on sending this special reserve bourbon. Chef Mitchell was just telling me about building her restaurant family, William commented. Thomas's eyes met mine, understanding immediately. When Amber hired me, I'd just been fired from a toxic workplace that nearly made me leave the industry. She's the first chef who ever asked about my career goals instead of just what I could do for her restaurant. Sophia, passing by with desserts for another table, stopped briefly. Are we talking about how Chef built Homestead? Because I have to tell this, she addressed William directly. During my trail shift, I burned a sauce badly. Instead of yelling like chefs at other places, she showed me exactly where I went wrong and then made me do it again until I got it right. She actually taught me instead of just criticizing. One by one, staff members stopped by, each adding their own story of how I'd impacted them. William listened attentively, occasionally making notes, while I sat overwhelmed by this spontaneous outpouring of support. Then something remarkable happened. A woman from a nearby table approached tentatively. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but we couldn't help overhearing. My husband and I, she gestured to her table companion, are celebrating our anniversary today. Our families refused to attend our wedding because they disapproved of our relationship. What you said about creating your own family, it resonated deeply. Before long, several tables had joined the conversation. A young man described opening his architecture firm without his parents' support. An older woman shared how she returned to college at 50 despite her children's embarrassment. Complete strangers began sharing their stories of pursuing dreams against opposition, of building chosen families when biological ones failed them. Thomas, ever the consummate host, began rearranging tables, bringing these formerly separate parties together. Someone ordered champagne for the entire group. A spontaneous toast erupted, to chosen family. In that moment, watching strangers connect over shared experiences of rejection and resilience, I understood what Homestead could truly be, not just a restaurant, but a gathering place for people seeking connection. The very table my family had rejected became the birthplace of something unexpected and beautiful. As the night wound down and the last customers departed except for our impromptu family dinner that showed no signs of ending, William shook my hand again. Chef Mitchell, I came tonight expecting to evaluate food. Instead, I witnessed something far more meaningful. You've created more than a restaurant. You've created a home. He glanced at the lively table. And it seems you've found your family after all. For the first time since reading Ryan's dismissive text, I smiled genuinely. Yes, I said, watching my staff interact seamlessly with our newfound friends. I believe I have. The morning after opening night, I awoke to physical exhaustion, but surprising emotional clarity. The family-shaped hole I'd carried for 15 years had begun to fill with something unexpected: acceptance. Not the acceptance I'd sought from my parents and brother, but acceptance of myself and my chosen path. I arrived at the restaurant to find my phone ringing with reservation requests, far more than usual for a new establishment. The reason became clear when Marcus thrust a copy of the morning edition of the Denver Tribune into my hands. "William Chen's review is already out," he said, eyes wide with excitement. "This never happens. He must have written it immediately after leaving last night." The headline took my breath away. "Homestead. More than a restaurant. It's a homecoming." William's review described the food in glowing detail, praising the technical excellence and emotional resonance of each dish. But the final paragraphs transcended typical food criticism. What elevates Homestead beyond mere culinary excellence is Chef Mitchell's understanding that restaurants, at their best, are about more than food, they're about connection. In a poignant moment I witnessed, strangers became friends over shared stories and mutual support, transforming a simple dinner service into a celebration of resilience and chosen family. Homestead isn't just serving Nebraska-inspired cuisine, it's offering what many seek but few find: a place of belonging. In a city of transplants and seekers, Chef Mitchell has created a true homecoming. 5 stars. By noon, our reservation system crashed from the volume of requests. Thomas spent hours on the phone, apologetically explaining that we were now booked solid for 6 weeks. Derek called from the hospital where he was with his newborn son, simultaneously ecstatic about the review and sorry he'd missed the magical evening. "We need to hire more staff," he said practically. "Can we handle this volume?" "We'll make it work," I assured him, already mentally restructuring kitchen stations for maximum efficiency. That afternoon, I sent one final outreach to my family, a simple text with a link to William's review. I attached no comment, made no plea. The ball was entirely in their court. My father's response came hours later: "Congratulations on the review. Just don't come asking for money when it fails." I stared at the message, feeling an unexpected sense of relief rather than hurt. For the first time, his negativity didn't wound me. His opinion, I realized, had become irrelevant to my success or happiness. Instead of responding, I channeled my energy into creating something positive. That evening, I proposed a new concept to my staff: Community Table Tuesdays. Each week, we would reserve our largest table for solo diners or strays without local connections, creating intentional community among strangers. "Like what happened organically on opening night," Thomas observed. Brilliant. The first Community Table Tuesday filled immediately. 8 strangers sharing a meal became, by dessert, 8 friends exchanging phone numbers. The second week, we had to add another table. By the third week, it had become our most popular reservation. As summer turned to fall, Homestead's reputation grew beyond Denver. National food publications requested interviews. A popular cooking show invited me to appear as a guest judge. Through it all, I maintained the quality and integrity of our original vision while allowing the concept to evolve organically. Our first holiday season brought a new innovation: strays and solos, holiday dinners for people without family celebrations to attend. We served a fixed-price feast on Thanksgiving and Christmas, with staff volunteering to work in exchange for generous bonuses. The events sold out within hours of being announced. "You've created something special here," said a tearful guest at our Christmas dinner, a transplant from across the country spending his first holiday alone. "This doesn't feel like a restaurant. It feels like coming home." By our 10th month, our financial projections had been shattered in the best possible way. Derek and I began discussing expanding into the vacant space next door for private events and cooking classes. "We should focus on community-building events," I suggested. "Cooking classes where people work together, family-style dinners for corporate team building." Leaning into the chosen family concept that's become our signature, Derek agreed. Perfect. In January, Samantha, my former mentor, finally visited from New York. She toured the restaurant with appraising eyes before embracing me tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she said. You've taken everything I taught you about the business and added something I could never teach, heart. This place has your soul in it. Her words validated something I'd felt, but couldn't articulate. Homestead wasn't just a successful business, it was a physical manifestation of my journey. That same month, I hired Emily, a recent culinary school graduate whose family had discouraged her cooking dreams. Her dedication and raw talent reminded me painfully of myself at that age. After watching her stay late to perfect her techniques, I took her under my wing. My parents think I'm wasting my education, she confided one night as we tested recipes for our spring menu. Mine too, I told her, sharing my story openly. But what matters is this. Do you love the work itself, not just the idea of it? Because if you love the actual daily grind of cooking, the burns, the pressure, the repetition, then you're exactly where you should be. The relief in her eyes mirrored what I had felt years ago when Chef Gabriel had validated my talent. The cycle of mentorship had come full circle. As we approached our one-year anniversary, Derek suggested we think beyond a single celebration. We should consider expansion, he proposed. Not just the event space, I mean additional locations. The homestead concept clearly resonates. We could explore Denver suburbs, maybe Boulder or Fort Collins. The idea was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Expanding meant risk, but also opportunity to touch more lives and create more homes for people seeking connection. We began preliminary research, exploring potential locations and running numbers. Through it all, the community table concept remained our heart. Regular attendees began forming genuine friendships outside the restaurant. 2 solo diners who met at our table even started dating, later returning to Homestead for their engagement dinner. We had created not just a restaurant, but a living community. Exactly 1 year after our tumultuous opening night, I arrived at Homestead early to prepare for our anniversary celebration. The restaurant had evolved beautifully, with subtle refinements to the decor and menu while maintaining our core identity. As I unlocked the door, I reflected on the journey from that Nebraska kitchen with Grandma Elaine to this moment of undeniable success. The staff would arrive in an hour to prepare for our special service, but I wanted this quiet moment alone with my creation. I walked through the dining room, straightening already perfect table settings, remembering significant moments at each table, proposals, reunions, celebrations, and countless community table gatherings. The bell above the door chimed unexpectedly. We weren't open yet, and I turned to politely inform whoever had entered. The words died in my throat. Grandma Elaine. My grandmother stood in the doorway, looking smaller than I remembered, but with the same warm eyes that had watched me make my first clumsy attempts at baking decades ago. She was 84 now, her once auburn hair completely silver, but her smile remained unchanged. Amber, she said simply, opening her arms. I crossed the room in seconds, embracing her with careful strength, afraid she might break in my arms. She smelled exactly as I remembered, like vanilla and the lavender sachets she kept in her dresser drawers. How did you? Why are you? I couldn't form a coherent question. I saw the review, she said, pulling back to look at me. The one you sent to your father last year. He didn't show me, of course, but your cousin Melinda did. I've been saving my money ever since, planning this trip. She cupped my cheek. I wouldn't miss your anniversary. She let me lead her through the restaurant, exclaiming over details that others might miss. The quality of our kitchen knives, the organization of our spice shelf, the comfortable height of our prep tables. Chef details that only another serious cook would notice. You left him too, didn't you? I asked suddenly, the pieces clicking into place. Grandpa. That's why you lived alone all those years. Grandma Elaine nodded slowly. I was 26 when I realized he would never support my dreams of opening a bakery. Wives don't need businesses, he said. So I left. She squeezed my hand. Your father was only 7. He never forgave me for choosing myself over his idea of family. And he raised you with that same fear, that passion is somehow selfish. Why didn't you ever tell me? Would it have changed your path? Made it easier? She shook her head. Some journeys we must make alone, dear one. But I watched you from afar, so proud of every step. As staff arrived and preparations for the anniversary dinner began, Grandma Elaine settled at the bar, swapping cooking stories with Marcus and charming everyone she met. The parallels between us. Two women who left home to pursue culinary dreams, who built new families when biological ones failed, were striking. "You're giving my granddaughter a good team here," she asked Marcus with playful sternness. "The best," he assured her. We'd follow her anywhere. The anniversary dinner exceeded my wildest expectations. Regular customers mingled with food critics and industry professionals. Community table regulars attended as a group, presenting us with a handmade guest book filled with their stories of connections formed at Homestead. During a lull in service, I checked my phone to find a surprising email, a message from a local culinary school asking if I would consider establishing a scholarship for students from unsupportive backgrounds. The idea resonated so deeply that I immediately forwarded it to Derek with "yes" in the subject line. Near the end of the evening, a representative from the Colorado Restaurant Association approached our table. "Chef Mitchell, it's my pleasure to inform you that Homestead has been named Denver's Restaurant of the Year." The room erupted in applause. As I stood to accept the award, I scanned the crowd, my staff, my regulars, my chosen family, and felt a completeness I'd sought for years. "I want to thank everyone who believed in Homestead," I began, but also, strangely enough, those who didn't. Without that opposition, I might never have discovered my own strength or understood how many others walk similar paths. I raised my glass. To chosen family, the people who love us for exactly who we are, not who they wished we would be. The celebration continued late into the night. As we were closing up, Thomas approached with an unusual expression. "There's a call for you on the business line," he said hesitantly. "It's your father." My stomach tightened as I took the phone. "Hello, Amber." My father's voice sounded older, more uncertain than I remembered. "I saw you on the cooking channel last week. Your mother recorded it." I waited, unwilling to make this easy for him. "You looked professional," he continued awkwardly. "The restaurant seemed nice." "It is nice," I replied evenly. "We just won Restaurant of the Year." A long pause followed. "Your grandmother is missing. Did she contact you?" I glanced at Grandma Elaine, happily helping the bussers fold napkins for tomorrow's service. "She's here. She came for our anniversary." Another pause. "Oh." Then, with evident difficulty, "Well, tell her we were concerned." It wasn't an apology or even real recognition of my accomplishments, but it was the first conversation in 15 years where he hadn't predicted my failure. It was a start, a small one, but still a start. "I will," I promised, then added, "The door is always open, Dad. If you and Mom ever want to see what I've built." After we hung up, I felt Grandma Elaine's arm around my shoulders. "Bridges take time to build," she said wisely. "Especially when the ravine is deep." "I'm not sure I even want that bridge anymore," I admitted. "I've found my people here." She nodded understanding. "Family isn't always who raised you. Sometimes it's who lifts you up, who sees you clearly." In the months that followed, Homestead continued to thrive. We finalized plans for our second location and launched the scholarship program, which received overwhelming support from the community. Our community table concept expanded to 3 nights weekly, always booked solid. I met James at a local farmer's market while sourcing ingredients. Unlike previous relationships that had fizzled due to my work commitment, James understood my passion immediately. As a landscape architect, he had his own creative drive that matched my intensity. My parents wanted me to be an accountant, he confessed on our 3rd date. We still argue about it at every holiday. "Would you like to come to our community table next Tuesday?" I asked. "It's full of people whose families don't understand their choices." He did, becoming a regular and eventually an extended member of our Homestead family. My parents never visited the Denver location, but when we opened our 3rd homestead in Omaha, close enough for a day trip from their home, my mother came alone one afternoon. She ordered the short ribs and said little, but before leaving, she pressed something into my hand, Grandma Elaine's handwritten recipe for apple pie. "She would have wanted you to have this," she said simply. It wasn't the wholehearted acceptance I'd once craved, but I recognized it for what it was, an acknowledgement, however small, of my path. Emily, my young protege, blossomed into an exceptional sous chef. When her parents finally visited, skeptical but curious about her chosen career, I recognized the hope and fear in her eyes, the same emotions I'd felt for years. After their meal, I personally guided them through the kitchen, showing them their daughter's station, bragging about her innovations and work ethic. "You've raised an exceptional chef," I told them. "She has a remarkable future ahead." The uncertainty in their expressions softened slightly, and I knew Emily might avoid some of the heartache I'd experienced. On quiet nights, I sometimes sit at the bar after closing, looking around at the restaurant that once existed only in my dreams. The journey from Nebraska to Denver wasn't what I'd expected. The empty table on opening night, what had felt like ultimate rejection, had actually opened the door to something more meaningful than familial obligation. I created space for a different kind of family, one based on shared values, mutual respect, and genuine support. In losing what I thought I needed, I found what I truly required. As Homestead enters its third year, I've finally come to understand that sometimes the empty chair at your table makes room for the guest you never expected but desperately needed. Sometimes the family you're born into serves mainly to launch you toward the family you're meant to build. Have you ever had to create your own chosen family when your blood relatives didn't support your dreams? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in unexpected places, and share this with someone who might need a reminder that family can be found in surprising places. Thank you for being part of our homestead community here, and remember, the most beautiful tables are often filled with strangers who became friends.